right, everybody, welcome back to the 1% podcast. I am very excited for this one. It's nice to, I think it's just nice to have someone from a completely different side of the world on the podcast, which is amazing. So, Nicole, welcome to the podcast. How are you doing, my love?
I am great. Thank you so much for having me.
Do you know what I really forgot? I was like, what's the surname now?
Do you know what? I've actually decided to keep my last name, but I might
Okay.
do like a little hyphen situation. It's a
Yep.
little bit complicating because I'm not actually an Australian citizen. I'm a Singaporean citizen, so it's like a lot of paperwork to do to
Mm.
change the names and all that kind of stuff. So I don't really know if I want to go through all of that.
It's okay, guys. She recently just got married, so we'll dive into that later on. So it's fine.
So
Um,
for now, still Nicole Tan.
But I guess what I like to do with these podcasts is kind of to start a little bit earlier on. But if if you get in a taxi, if you got on a bus, whatever it is, and someone goes, "Hey, like, what do you do? Like, what do you do for a job? Things like that. Like, who is Nicole? What does she do?"
If it was someone that totally didn't know me, I would just kind of keep it as simple as possible and just say like, "Oh, I'm like a fitness coach." It's depending on how deep I want to get into the conversation with them. Because sometimes if I say I'm an online coach or whatever, or even if I go even deeper and say like, "Oh, like I'm a IFBB pro," and then I would have to explain the whole thing.
Yeah,
So if it was just like say a Uber driver or whatever asking me what I did, I would just say like I'm a fitness coach.
awesome. So I guess your kind of backstory is obviously that you already touched into it, kind of being not an Australian citizen, just things like that. So I guess let's kind of dive back to, I don't know, like early teens. What do you think? Well, not even what do you think? What was the beginning like? What was high school life? What were you like back in the early days? What was family like and things like that?
Wow, oh, that's so hard. No one has ever asked me that actually. So early days, I grew up in Singapore. However, my dad actually works for the Singapore military. So we moved around a lot, like as a kid. So I actually also lived in France for 2 years when I was in like year three and year four.
Yeah.
So I actually don't know how old that is, but yeah, year three and year four, I grew up in France. And then went back to Singapore for about 3 years or so. And in 2016 or 2017, I like to say, I finally moved to Australia. So even though I haven't, well, I'm not an Australian citizen, I spent majority of my life in Australia, I would say, because in the early days, I didn't actually stay in one particular place for long enough to really kind of like be able to say I'm from there. Like I spent a lot of when I was being younger, not really being sure where I actually belonged because obviously when I first came to Australia, I didn't really feel Australian for a long time.
Yeah.
And but now it's my home and I call it home. And there's I always talk about wanting to still move and live somewhere else. I guess it's just like, part of me. So I guess I've now accepted that I'm like a little bit of everything, all the different countries I've lived in and also with my parents, my dad is actually from Malaysia. And so
Okay.
I have a lot of relatives and cousins and stuff from Malaysia. I go back to Malaysia pretty often. And then my mom is the one that's from Singapore.
How was that? How was that growing up? Like school and things like that. Like you hear about kind of kids that travel a lot with like military families and things like that. How did you find it from just having security, if that makes sense, like with friends and things like that? How was growing up from the kind of social, even academic side and stuff like that?
Yeah, I both social and academic was pretty hard. So with Singapore, it's a very stressful kind of a country. So there's a lot of pressure in terms of like studies and school and things like that. So I'm kind of glad that I got out of that. On
Mm.
top of all the pressure from like studying, it's also very hard to kind of do well over there. You really have to be the best of the best. But I guess that's kind of what made me like what I am today. Just being in that environment, as stressful as it is as a kid, um, it you grew up knowing that like you had to be the best to be able to make it in a country like that. Not only that, on top of that, over there, like houses, cars, everything are like very, very, very expensive. and there's a
Okay.
lot of people who just, the work and hustle culture there is crazy. So I grew up always knowing that, like, we had to work hard, but also and my definition of working hard is very, very different to the Australians who grew up here. I would say it's a little bit more laid back, and I wouldn't say easy, but there's not as much pressure like to, I guess, work hard over
Yeah,
here as compared to Singapore. In Singapore, you can see a lot of, very much of the older population, even like maybe into their 70s and 80s, and they're still working and they don't get
true.
paid much, but they're still working because we don't have as much of, I guess, like welfare like over there. You have
Yeah,
to, there's no handouts. You have to work for everything. And also, if the only people you can rely on, if you didn't have, that kind of money or whatever, you couldn't get your own place, or yeah, if you couldn't get your own place, I think the housing is the main thing, that you would stay with your family for like a very long time. So over there, a lot of the people, and including myself, we're very close to my family. I remember when I was growing up, and even though my dad already had his military job, it'll be like my whole family, with my dad, with my mom, living with my grandma, and then my
wow,
mom's brother. And also, when he met his girlfriend, which is my auntie now, we all live together in the same
holy shit,
house. So
that's
yeah, we're
insane.
very close. So now that I think about that, I'm like, that's actually really nice. But
Yeah,
obviously, it's also a luxury now that I see that, to be able to live in my own home at like 30, compared to, obviously, if I was living in Singapore, I'm not sure if that would have been possible.
yeah, amazing. I think what's nice about that is that you can obviously, like for me, I don't know you back then, right? But you can see those childhood development and what it's, and you can see like, oh, okay, that's why she is what she is today. Or that's kind of like, I always think as well, like I was having this conversation the other day with someone, and I think it's important to have trauma. It's important to kind of have these kind of things that challenge you as a child, because it honestly stays with you. And you can obviously, we've seen that into your coaching career, your professional career, and things like that. And it's kind of what makes you a relentless, obsessive person that achieves incredible things. So I guess when did you kind of settle in Australia? You said 2016 or 17?
Yeah, 2016 and 17. So I entered here in year 9, which was really hard as well, because high school starts in year 8. So obviously
Okay.
everyone there had already made friends, formed their groups, and obviously me being Asian, and there was not many Asians in my school at all. So I know now, like, obviously my partner Jeremy is quite fortunate in the high school that he was in. There was like a lot of Asians there. So it's, I guess, different from the high school that I went to. So I did feel a little bit isolated initially. Obviously, everyone was very nice, but it was still kind of like, you felt a bit of an outsider a little bit. You don't really feel like you quite belong there, because people
Yeah.
talk about like their childhood friends and their primary school friends and people they grew up with from the neighborhood down the street and things like that. And this was something I would never have growing up. I only had just my immediate family, just because we've been moving around a lot. And even in Singapore, having came back from France, I also missed out on those years where people again form their, like, good strong relationships and things like
Yeah.
that. And after 3 years, I finally felt like I was starting to settle and like have a good group of like people, and just like people were just starting to kind of, I guess, know who I am. I guess maybe that's why I kind of really wanted to make a name for myself, because I was tired of being like the new girl that like no one knew. So every
Yeah.
time like I went somewhere new, I was always the new girl and no one knew who I was and things like that. So I guess a little bit of that does carry over to, obviously, me and my career now, wanting to obviously be known for what I do and what I'm good for, I guess. And makes me want to work really hard to like make a name for myself.
Amazing. Did you enjoy school?
I would say yes and no. I did excel in school in a way. Like I did pretty well, but I think that's again my upbringing in Singapore. Honestly, after Singapore coming to Australia, I found school pretty easy for the first
Yeah.
couple of years. Obviously there's still certain things that were like a little bit hard, but obviously like making friends wasn't hard either. It was easy, but I just didn't feel connected, if that kind of makes sense. It's just kind of very surface level, superficial kind of friendships. And I guess maybe that's why I don't really still keep in contact with anyone that I have like met in high school. I do have a few family friends I met in my high school days that I still
Yeah.
keep in contact with. But I made majority of my very, very close friends when I went to university, and that's when I really made like form good solid relationships with people, and like those are the people that are like still in my life today, and we've
Amazing.
been friends for my like 13, 14 years, and that's something that I've wanted like all my life, just to have people that I can say that I've known for a long time is just
Yeah,
something I've never been able to have much growing up. So now that I finally am able to have those relationships, I really do treasure like all of them.
amazing. And I can't, that leads me on nicely. So you obviously finished high school at what, like 15, 16 kind of thing? Or is it a little bit later than that?
It's,
I
I
don't
think
even know.
yeah, I think 17, around 17. Yeah.
17, okay. And then you go to university.
Yes.
Cool. What did you go to? Obviously, I like you're based in Perth, right? Perth. So I'm assuming you went to uni in Perth as well.
Yes, I went to uni in Perth as well. So I actually did my bachelor's in media because I had intentions of possibly moving back to Singapore or Asia to be in like the media industry, something in
Mm.
front of camera, things like that, because it's quite big over there. Whereas in Perth, there's nothing. And Australia is also, there's not much. Like our media scene here is not as huge as like, say, Asia or America or things like that. I was just very, very interested in media my whole life. However, when I finally finished my media course, I had to make the decision whether I would stay here or leave again. And
Okay.
so at that point, I've started getting so comfortable being here, and I saw all the benefits of obviously being Australian, how affordable, and I want to say affordable, but like affordable compared to
Yeah,
Singapore.
it's fine. Yeah.
Uh, a nice, big, beautiful house is in Perth. Over east, a little bit more expensive, but especially where I was in Perth, I got used to just the lifestyle here.
Yeah.
Obviously, we started driving here at 16. I think in Singapore, the driving age is like 18. You start to learn how to drive then. And I've been, driving my own car for a while now. And in Singapore, cars are insanely expensive. And
Yeah.
after really thinking about all these things, I decided that I did want to stay here. I also wanted to obviously continue living amongst like people that I've formed relationships with and things like that over here. And I decided I wanted to stay here. So I had to find a way to stay here because of the visa situations and things like that. It was not that easy to become a permanent resident.
Yeah.
So they don't normally offer permanent residencies to people who do like media. You have to be in the list of jobs that they deem
Doctors,
as,
lawyers, and all the
yeah,
stuff,
like
the things
they
that
have a
bring
list.
value to Australia, sort of
Exactly,
thing.
add
Yeah.
value to a society. So I looked at the list and I just thought about what I would, not what I wanted to do, but what I wouldn't mind continuing university for. I was like, what
Yeah.
would I study? And what didn't take that long. Obviously, I was like, I was not going to be a doctor. I was not going to be a lawyer. That took too long, too much money. So I decided on accounting. So I was able to put that onto my media degree. I guess they went pretty well together. So with my bachelor's of media, I was able to do a master's in commerce and specialize in accounting. So 5 to 6 years of uni study total. I now have a bachelor's and a master's and a permanent residency in Australia.
Awesome.
So that was the goal for then.
And then when did lifting weights up and down, when did that kind of come into the equation for you?
So all through my life, I've always enjoyed being active. So I've always, put my hand up in high school for all the like team sports. And I guess that's why it was easy for me to make friends and stuff. Because I was always, most girls were unwilling to be a part of like the mixed team volleyball or whatever. And they always needed a girl, and there was not many girls who would raise their hand up to do it. So I was always the one who raised my hand up to do it. Everyone was happy until they realized how shit I was. And then they're like, oh my God, we're stuck with her. She's pretty shit. Plus, I've always been quite short, so I'm 151 centimeters, so 5 foot. So I'm
Oh, are you?
short.
Wow, that
So
is
a lot of the sports don't suit me because I'm short, and I'm also like really skinny and scrawny and don't really have much strength. So I couldn't really excel in um sports. However, I just knew that I just enjoyed exercise and like being active and things like that. When I was younger, I did really want to do kind of like martial arts and things like that, but my parents wouldn't let me because I'm a girl.
amazing.
So, I had to do dancing and things like that, which I did do. I did dance pretty well. So that was something that I did excel in. And that was something that did help me with my current career, being on stage and
Yeah.
performing, smiling, not being afraid of, standing in front of crowds and being judged and things like that. all came from like my dance background. So I guess every little thing I did growing up does kind of play a role in like what I currently do now, which I'm grateful for. Even with the media degree and everything, obviously being an online coach, you know how important social media is, and being able to talk in front of a camera and like know how to edit and things like that. Everything
Mm,
just all came in handy, even accounting, because as running your own businesses, you know how you need to know the numbers and all that stuff. So
yeah.
I'm pretty much in charge of that now that me and my partner are in a company together. He's just like, cool, you do all that boring number stuff. And I do love it.
Yeah, it's
So
good. Did you ever go into that career path? Did you ever actually go into like working a 9 to 5 with accounting and things
yeah, so
like that?
I did longer than a 9 to 5. So I only did it for 6 months. So when I was in my final year of uni was when I started bodybuilding and when I did my first show. And that carried on to when I started my career in finance. So I started in finance instead of accounting, just because it was easier to get a finance job when I was in between my visas. And I actually worked for BMW, which
Oh,
sounds great. Yeah, you know, I've always loved BMW as a company. The dealership that we were at was beautiful, and I was given the position of basically they call it like the business manager. So I was like the finance person um, in the company or like the our dealership. And there was no set boss because I was the only person in the finance company or the finance sector. So basically, there would be the main manager of the dealership, and then there'd be all your car salespeople, and then there'd be one person in my particular dealership that would be in charge of doing the loans and all that kind of stuff, and that would be me. So it was pretty rough because I was just straight out of uni and I didn't really know what I was doing.
yeah.
But they offered me a car and all that kind of stuff. So I was like, cool, let's
You
do
just take
this.
it. If you get cars and you get
Yeah,
work, you take it.
I was like, cool, a car, a cool office, BMW. I get to kind of like pretty much be my own boss. Why not? But the hours were absolutely horrible. So car yard hours, you work basically Monday to Saturday. A standard day is 8 till 6. So not a nine to
Oh,
five, 8 till 6. And on a Wednesday was our late night shopping. So 8 till I think 9 p.m. So uh 13 hour day basically. And then your Saturday is half a day. So on
yeah,
top of
yeah,
that, when I was wanting to prep as well, so I was prepping for I think my first Arnold's when I was working there, having to prep, do cardio, prep your food, you know, go to the gym, find time to see Jeremy. That it was just I could not do it. And I had
yeah.
to kind of decide whether I wanted to pursue a career with bodybuilding or to kind of stay in this job because I just knew that they both wouldn't go hand in hand. I still did it. I did the prep, finished the prep, placed fourth at the Arnold's. So I still managed to do it, but I knew that if I wanted to continue and do better and not just do better in bodybuilding, or if I wanted to even succeed even more in the finance career, that it couldn't go together. I had to pick one or the other.
Yeah.
And I've always, again, like I've always loved fitness. And at the time, my partner Jeremy was already doing PT and things like that. So whilst I was working my 60 hours in the kayak and also prepping and whatnot, I was also online on my free time trying to finish my PT cert.
Amazing.
So I
Jesus, that's
finally
full
got
on.
my cert 3 and 4.
Yeah.
And I think it was shortly after I came back from the Arnold's and I realized that I did well and I wanted to pursue it even more. I was
Yeah.
like, it's time. It's time to leave. So I left and then pretty much started PT straight away in Good Life, which is like a Good Life fitness fest, kind of like a commercial gym here in
Yeah, I think
Australia.
I saw a few when I went over. Yeah. Yeah. It's kind of like a
Yeah.
yeah, I know what you mean. It's like a David Lloyd kind of like fitness first.
Yeah,
Yeah, I know what
yeah,
you mean. Yeah. And
yeah.
okay, so backtrack again for me. How did you meet Jeremy?
Okay, so everyone would assume that either like we met competing or met at the gym, but actually we met at a nightclub because
Yes,
when I was
that's the
working
best
in uni,
ones.
yeah, when I was working uni, yeah, I partied a lot. We both partied a lot, but on top of that, I also worked a lot of events. So I got into event organization, things like that. So I was one of the promo girls for Metro City, which is like
Oh,
a
I
nightclub
remember doing
here in
that. Like when you're at uni, like 8, 6,
Gotta
17,
hustle.
20. Yeah, you just do those. Yeah.
Yeah, so doing that allowed me to have like, free entry, a bar card. I got a guest list to bring my friends in. Everyone wanted to be my friend. So again, it was like a why not kind of a situation.
Yeah, amazing. And then
Yeah, so when I was doing that, that's where I met him. So we met partying, but obviously like he was probably more into the gym than I was. I already started training a little bit, but I didn't know what I was doing. I went to the gym to socialize with my friends, we lift some weights, laugh and play around, things like that. Just kind of wanted to look good. But I didn't really know much about how I can change my body or whatever. I was more so thinking that I was going there doing a little bit of cardio, lifting some weights that like my body would change. So obviously I did that for a while, and like obviously as you know now, it's not enough. Nothing happened. I
yeah,
look the same.
yeah. So okay, so you obviously came back from the Arnold's and you thought, fuck this sort of thing, and you just like, I'm out of kind of BMW, that kind of accounting life. And that's when you went into PTing from that point then, yeah?
Yeah, so I jumped into PT just straight away, all in. It didn't really have any backup. I know sometimes people try to do both. I
Yeah.
didn't. I just decided I was just gonna do
I think,
it.
do you know what? I think people overthink it too much. You know, people are like, wait till your PT money is the same as your accounting money, and then you can like drop it. And I'm like, no, because you wouldn't be able to have the hours. I'm just like, just go all in.
Yes,
Just go all in on
exactly.
one and just fuck it. I want to break down a little bit of a time frame. So when was that? How old were you when you kind of just went onto the gym floor, PTing and things like that?
How old was I? Probably around 23 or 24.
Okay, so it's been, and you're 30 now, right?
Yeah, 31 tomorrow.
Are you? You timed the wedding, everything very, very well.
Yeah.
Or very
Yes.
bad. I don't know. One or the other. Okay, cool. So that's like 6, 7 years, something along those lines.
Yeah, I've been in the industry for
Cool.
about that long. Yeah,
And
sounds about
then
right.
let's dive into obviously more so, I guess, like a bit of both, but obviously like the career building up and things like that, but also your competitive history and stuff like that. So you're on the gym floor, things like that. When was kind of the next show off the back of the Arnold's and things like that? And when was the show where you thought like, fuck, I could be pretty good at this? Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, so um before the Arnold, I probably would have already done I did two smaller shows, which is like or like they call it the natural shows here, so like the ICN and
Yeah.
things like that. So I did two of those. Didn't do very well, and then I did my first IFBB show that same year that I went to the Arnold. So I just did the
Okay.
IFBB state show. I placed probably like fourth, and they only placed like top three. So
Yeah.
I placed fourth, maybe not. See? I don't know. I didn't place in
The
my
numbers
state
are
show,
relevant. Yeah.
basically. Yeah, basically didn't place in my state show. So I was like, oh, like not feeling like I was very good, but I knew that I was like not too far away. So I had a lot of like fire, even though I knew I wasn't good enough yet. Going into the IBB, I knew I was very, very under muscled anyways. To put it into perspective, my first show, which was a year before the Arnold's, I was 38 kilos on stage. So not very much at all. I was lean.
Yeah.
Obviously like enough to still place in that show. Um, not very well, but like obviously I was 38 kilos, and I was just the problem with not placing well in those shows was just that like the look that they were going for, and the girls that were placing higher than me didn't really make me feel motivated to want to do better. I didn't necessarily feel like their physique was something that I aspired to be like, because I've always looked up to IFBB girls. I
Yeah.
was like, I want to be beaten by someone who's like leaner than me, bigger than me, like just all that kind of stuff that I can hope to be, and not just this like natural shape of like, because they want you to kind of look like, oh, I just kind of like rock up to the beach and this is like my
Yeah.
look. That was, especially back then, that was very much what those federations were looking for. And
Mm.
it was not what I aspired to be like. I wanted to look like the IFBB girl. So I was like, why not just throw myself into the deep end, just go straight into IFBB? I may not actually do well, but it'll be a start. It'll be definitely more motivating. Obviously, Jeremy was doing the IBB as well. He was looking to go to the Arnold's as well. So I was like, cool. My first season with the IBB, I will do a state show, and then 2 weeks later it's the Arnold's. It was the second Arnold's ever in Australia, so
That in
it was just
Melbourne?
really exciting at the time. Yeah, in Melbourne,
Yeah.
Yeah, so it was just the second Arnold's ever. It was just exciting. I wanted to be there. Jeremy was going to be competing. We were prepping together and everything. So yeah, so when after I did the stage show, I was, even though I didn't do that well, I was still motivated, not like a little bit disappointed, but still on a good
Yeah.
kind of a good drive, you know. And then I went to the Arnold's, and obviously, because I did the novice class and I placed fourth out of the place the top six. I
Okay.
was stoked. I was so happy. So I was like, you know
Yeah.
what? Maybe I'm not that far away from what I thought like I would be. So I think I actually decided to compete again that same year, but the following season. No, I took a year off, I think. Yeah, so I took a year off, but I competed the next year again.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah, I'm with you.
Yeah, so the next year I competed again. And again, it was going to be again the season A with the state show leading up to the Arnold. So I prepped for that and I actually came second in my state show.
Shit.
So
Okay.
at that time again, I was on a high. I was super happy. I was like, this is great. I'm making progress. I didn't place last year. Now I came second. There's like two different classes that I competed in and I placed second in both. So I was like super happy. And then we went to the Arnold's. And I think because this time I entered the open division, I placed, I think, ninth or 10th at the Arnold's. So I was a little bit disappointed then. So that was the first time my soul was like a little bit crushed,
Yeah.
especially because a lot of the girls who showed up that season were like very, very good. Not only were they very muscular, looked really good, they were big names as well. So going into it, I was already very intimidated. Um, I think Steph also competed in that season, I think in a different height class. But I
Yeah.
don't know, do you know who Asha Coulthard is?
I know the name. Yeah.
Yeah, so she's now WBFF world champion figure, 3 times world champion. Like, so
Oh,
she
wow.
was there. Like, as you can imagine, a figure world champion in the IFBB bikini division. At that
Yeah.
time already, she had so much muscle. So I already knew I had like a lot of work to do at that time. And yeah, I was just kind of feeling a little bit unmotivated. So I felt a little bit, you know.
Mm.
But then I decided to keep going because I competed that same year in the second season because the
Okay.
season A and B shows were a little bit far apart. So that year I competed twice in that year. Just because I think the more disappointed I was, the more hungry and fired up I was as well. I
But
was like,
that's
no,
like,
I want this so much.
yeah, but that's almost it. It's when people say like you can't or you failed and things like that. Again, it kind of comes back to that trauma and things like that. Like when you've had a kick in the teeth, like I always think it's like a villain and like a hero in a movie. I'm like, both have kind of in the sense the same goal, but they direct it very differently. It's like a villain just wants to get revenge and fuck everyone up, but then the hero wants to do exactly the same, but just make sure in the future no one else feels like that. So it's kind of
Yeah,
using that kind of power, that energy to be like, right, how do I direct in what direction? And I think for competing, it's a bit of both, being like, yeah, fuck you, but it's also being like, actually, like I'm doing this for, again, like you're doing this as a couple, you're doing this for your future and things like that, and also your family and everything along those lines. So no, I love it. Carry on.
yeah. And I think if I actually did well, maybe I wouldn't have pushed myself as hard. I think I needed to be that disappointed and that sad to be able to progress even quicker. I guess sometimes people get a little bit what's the word, like complacent when they actually are on a good high
Yeah,
and they keep winning all their shows and then they don't have as much fire as someone who's like, you know, I was a little bit close and then now I'm doing really bad and like things like that. So yeah, I was really, really motivated, like trained really hard, whatever, really tried to put on size. So for me, it was always a putting on size, more size, more size, more size. It was always the feedback from every single show. And it was never really anything in specific, which was a little bit hard because sometimes there's certain things you need to work on. But
mm,
I was just told like you just need to grow everywhere. Like you're great as is. We need you to grow everywhere. So I couldn't even focus on a particular body part or anything. I just had to keep doing what I was already doing, but like more and more, and like, you know,
yeah,
keep eating up in the off season and put on muscle and train harder and get stronger and the same thing. So kept doing that. And then season B came along. I did the state show, and I came second again. So this time I was disappointed. I was like, okay, look, like I have 2 silver medals already from the last state show. I was really hoping to do better this time. So coming second that time, I was again quite I wouldn't say demotivated, but it did affect me. So I was quite, and this now I became angry. I think it got to a point where before, like, I was like, fired up, and I was like, no, now I'm just mad. I'm mad at being second. I don't want to be second anymore. I'm like, next
Yeah.
time I step on stage, I'm not going to be second. I'm done with this. So I decided not to go to nationals, and I just kind of cut it there. At this time, I also started a little bit of powerlifting kind of training. So
Okay.
I think I was inspired by like the Lauren Simpson and Hattie Boyd, and they were all like strong and like, they had a lot of muscle and they used to be skinny. So I was like, oh my God, I'm skinny. So maybe I have to like, get really strong and all that kind of stuff. So I was doing a mix of like powerlifting and bodybuilding kind of training. So I actually did hire a powerlifting coach to work together with my bodybuilding coach for that prep. So after that prep, I got a little bit I just needed a little bit of a break because I was in a bit of a angry state of mind, but
Yeah.
I still loved training. There was no part of me that ever was so disappointed that I just didn't want to go to the gym. It just made me want to kind of shift a little bit because I was like, I'm really enjoying this powerlifting thing. So maybe why not let me try a powerlifting, proper powerlifting block, do a powerlifting competition, see how I go, because I had a genetic advantage in powerlifting being short. So
Yeah.
this is the one sport in my whole life where they were like, you are perfect. You are built for this.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I was like, great, I'm short. I don't have to go very low, like in terms of like a tall person. When I'm squatting, I'm
It's
like,
just like
I'm
leverage,
pretty
isn't
close.
it?
I'm pretty close to the ground, with the deadlifts. I don't have to pull very far. And luckily for me, I'm just the proportions of like my limb length to my arms and stuff. It just, especially for a conventional deadlift, which is very hard for most people because of like, you
Yeah.
can't hinge your hip that far. There's so many problems, right, with the conventional deadlift. Mine was perfect. I was built for it. So obviously pulled really great numbers. I think I weighed maybe 43 to 44 kilos for my powerlifting comp. And I squatted like 95 kilos and I deadlifted 117. Could have done 120, but like
Oh,
we went for the three green lights instead. So it was like all clear on all the lifts.
yeah.
Yeah, and I got 117 for deadlifts. I was really weak at bench though. So bench, I think I probably got like 35, so very very weak in bench. But that was a very happy time in my life. For once in my life, I was like not worrying about food, not worrying about counting macros. I was just all about training, all about performance, and I was still able to kind of like live my life. Whereas, with bodybuilding, it's a little bit, you kind of, I wouldn't say you can't live your life, but like you can't really live your
But life
full
revolves
life.
around it. Yeah, yeah. That's
Yes, exactly. Bodybuilding is 24/7, 7 days a week. It's a much bigger life commitment. Whereas with powerlifting, I felt like it was just you and your training. You show up the best you can for your training. So you do whatever you need to do, sleep, recover, eat enough, rock up to your training session, smash it, smash the numbers, follow the program, and you'll hit those numbers. That it's pretty
yeah, black and white.
straightforward.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And even when it comes to placing and winning, and so I placed second in my powerlifting show. There is no judges or whatever. It's just there's the part of competing against yourself that we all say as bodybuilders. Only some of us really believe it, but in powerlifting, it really is competing against your old numbers. So if you
Yeah,
knew
it's
that you've
true.
never squatted 95 kilos before, and maybe at the gym you train with 80, and in the competition you hit 95, you're gonna feel like a winner
Yeah.
regardless, right?
Yeah, it's
And
true.
then
Yeah.
when it comes to picking the winner, the one who lifts the most weight wins. It's really straightforward. There's
Yeah.
no, like, there's none of that. So I really enjoyed that short part of my life. But after doing that, I knew, oh, even when I was doing that, I knew that I was going to go back to bodybuilding. I knew that I did powerlifting also because I knew that it would help me, especially build up my legs. So when I placed really badly at that Arnold's, like I felt like my legs were like really, really skinny looking. It was something that I really wanted to work on. And so, like I said, I knew that this training would help me. And yeah, my heart was still with bodybuilding and I really wanted to do it. But during this time, there was also that big IFBB split as well, where
Yeah.
the
It's the elite,
IFBB
wasn't it?
elite and the pro
Yeah.
elite was like splitting up. And so, the posing was changing. So the posing I preferred the pro elite posing, have always preferred that. I don't think anyone really looks good straight front on like this.
No. Unless you're just a
So
genetic freak and then you're good. Yeah.
yes, exactly. And I'm someone I have small clavicles. Yes, I have a small waist, but I also have small hips. So like I'm just like straight up and down, kind of thing. So I had to build a lot of lats and shoulders and glutes to be able to build that shape. But again, the IFBB posing allows me to really pose in a way to show off those proportions in a better way. Also, there was like a conditioning thing as well with the old IFBB. Like the conditioning wasn't as highly regarded as the pro league, and so a lot of times when I was placing second, it wasn't because the girl who won was leaner than me. They just had more size. But I always had this in my mind,
Yeah.
like if they were to be as lean as me, would they still be bigger than me though? I would like to see that. So it gave me a little bit more kind of motivation to come back. I'm like, cool, things have changed now. New federation, new kind of like judges, new look, and new criteria. It's like
Yeah.
a whole new start. And the good thing about that was with the NPC Worldwide, you can compete anywhere in the world you want.
Yeah.
So then there was no season A or B anymore. It was like if you have the funds and the means to fly, you can compete anytime in the world you want. You
Yeah.
just pick a show that fits your life schedule so you can plan around it. And I just love that so much. And so the first IBB Pro League show I did was in Singapore, that which is again the country I was from. I'm like, cool, I'm familiar with that place. The show is in August. It just kind of lined up with my life. And like I wanted to do it. I wanted to go back there and just kind of see what it was all about. So I flew to Singapore, did that show, and for the first time ever, I won. I won my first show.
Yeah.
So I was like, oh, I've just been wanting this for so long, just to win
Yeah.
and all that kind of stuff. And I didn't realize what winning meant because they were offering a pro card at that show.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
So
And you
all
go
the
into the
NPC
overall.
Worldwide.
Yeah.
Yes, I was like, oh my God, I'm fighting for my pro card now. This is crazy. So that was the first time I got like really close to it because prior to that, I just really wanted to win. And I wanted to improve. I wanted to put on muscle and I wanted to win. I thought being a pro would be great, but it didn't really seem real or that close to me until I was standing in that overall. And then I realized, hey, this is a possibility. Like, if I win a show and I win the overall, I'm going to be a pro. It's not that easy, but it's like it can happen just like that.
Yeah,
If
it
the
can.
stars
It's happened
align,
to many
you know,
people. Yeah.
yeah, you just don't see it coming. Next thing you're a pro. So you're like, oh my God. So yeah, that was a great experience, that show. The best thing was Sandy Williamson was a judge at that
Oh
show
wow.
too.
Okay, that's good.
So
Yeah.
having her judge me and just like, pick me to even win my division and things like that, like, that really kind of like gave me a bit of confidence to kind of feel
Yeah.
like not only that, like I can do this and then I made it the right choice to continue pursuing this, but also
Yeah.
that like I could actually be a pro.
I think it answers a lot of things, doesn't it? Like when you think, oh, like you leave the corporate world and you think like, and then you're 3 years down the line, you're like, what the fuck am I doing sometimes? And then you get that one moment where you're like, actually, almost like confirmation to be like, and relief sometimes that you're good enough to be there, which is amazing.
Yeah. And I think that was like, I guess, a turning point in my career doing that. And 2 weeks later, I also already signed up for a muscle contest in Vietnam.
Yeah.
So that was again so muscle contest was one of the shows that I've seen like all over like America and stuff. I was really excited. The winners win a big sword and all that kind of stuff. So I was like,
I only
I
went there for the
really, really
sword. I
want to
just
do
want the
that.
sword.
Yeah, I really, really wanted the sword. The overall winner got that. So again, I went to Vietnam. Spoiler, I didn't win the overall, obviously. But I won my class again. So I was like, again, cool. I won my class. And the good thing about the class system with all the NPC online shows is they go by your actual height.
Yeah.
So I was actually up against people who were actually my height, rather than like in Australia when you don't have enough people, they just get all the people and they split it in half. So I've always
Yeah.
been in the short class with girls who sometimes were a head taller than me. And I'm like, well, this is not the short class. You're not short. But yeah, so when they actually split the height classes properly, I can proudly say I've never lost in my actual height class. So I'm possibly one of the best shorter people out there in my height class. So yeah, so I was really happy at that show. Obviously, I went into that with a little bit more fire, like wanting to win the pro card. I was like, okay, like pro card's up for grabs. This is what I want. I'm here to win the pro card. I want that sword. I want the pro card. I didn't come this far to only come this far. But obviously, yeah, I didn't get the pro card. However, after the show, one of the judges did come up to me and said, I think you definitely have a future in this sport. It was very, very close. Like you would have been the second choice. Should that other girl who actually won the pro card, if she didn't actually show up today, it would have been yours. So don't give up, keep going. And like, I really hope to see you like in the pro ranks. He was actually he had his own show in Macau a couple of months later, and he's like, you should probably try again. But at that point, I was a little bit tired. I was like, look, it's been a
Yeah.
whole year, powerlifting comps, bodybuilding comps. Like I just kind of want to chill and relax for a little bit. But that thought was still like fresh in my mind. I was like, I still very much had that goal and dream. I just needed a little bit of a break. And then back to Australia, I watched the IFBB Pro League show here. So I was helping out at the competitions and things like that. This was in October, so August, September, October. Yeah, so 3 months. I was 3 months post show
Which year was this
from
now?
2018.
Okay.
Yeah. So 2018, went to the first Australia Pro League show to see it. And when you go to these shows in person, you just can't help but just feel like, oh, I miss it. I just want to
Yeah.
get back on there again and things like that. And I was talking to a lot of people at the shows. They're like, why didn't you do this one? Are you going to do next one? And the next one would have been in February. The next Arnold's was in Feb. So not too far away from when October was. At this point, I'd probably maybe like 6, 7 kilos up already, just in my best off season state, like just kind of enjoying being fluffy, like just getting into a groove. You get into a point where you're very happy with
Yeah.
your body fat because you feel good, the energy is there, you're just feeling good and everything. And everyone's like, oh, I really think you should do the next one. And I'm like, oh, I don't know. I probably put on a little bit too much weight now. Most people have already started prep for season A because it's not that far away because the state show was in Feb. And I was like, I don't know. I don't really know if I want to prep through Christmas again. But then I thought about it for a while and I was like, you know what? I really want to do this. And I didn't really have, oh yeah, so I forgot to mention one important thing. So for the Singapore, Vietnam show, I prepped myself.
Oh wow.
So
Okay.
the decision to do the next season was on me. I had no one to really ask,
Yeah.
I had no one to really be like, oh, how do you think I'm going? Do you think I should do this? People always ask their coach for permission. I
Yeah.
didn't have a coach. I was like, oh, if I want to do it, then just do it. I'm prepping myself, whatever.
Yeah.
Since I'm prepping myself, maybe I can even give myself a little bit of flexibility over Christmas, just one day.
Yeah.
No one's my boss. I can tell him I can give myself a treat meal. It's all good. So then I managed to convince myself. I did it. So I started prepping a couple of weeks later. I did had a little bit of time off in Christmas, just like Christmas Day, and I think like New Year's Eve. I gave myself a little bit of like leeway over there. Didn't go too crazy. Still trained, no alcohol, all of that. And then we prepped, did the state show, which is the first IFBB Pro League state show I did since the split. So I won that and I won the overall here. So at this point I was on a high. I was like, oh, I've been winning, all my classes so far. Now I won the overall finally. Now all that's left to do is to go to Arnold's, win my class there, and then win my pro card. I'm like, I got 2 more hurdles. I'm like, it's so close. It's nearly there. I can see it. And I think this was the first time I really believed in myself. I was like, like I can see this all happening. I've been
Mm.
so close. And I think it's just the winning my classes in Singapore and Vietnam just gave me like, that good momentum.
Yeah.
And then just again, never having an overall win to finally winning the overall like here in Perth, I was like, all the boxes were slowly getting ticked. And I'm like, is this like the route there, And I guess being your own coach as well, you don't really, it's kind of easy. No, I wouldn't say easy, but like you don't really have, if as long as you believe in yourself as your own coach, then I think like if you don't like kind of judge yourself in a bad way and you can kind of look at yourself and actually believe in yourself and you don't really have anyone else there to make you doubt yourself otherwise, then you kind of feel pretty unstoppable in that groove in a sense. And just there's no one really to I guess when you have a coach, your coach has other clients, you can't help but look at the other clients and things
Okay.
like
Yeah.
that. There's
I
a lot
know.
of other things that play into it because you would obviously compare yourselves to them and stuff, but I was
Of
like, it's just
course.
me, so and it was easy because you don't have to wait on someone to tell you what to eat on show day and like all that kind of stuff, and you're just kind of in control of the whole thing.
Yeah.
And it made the process quite stress free for me only because I think I was that confident
Yeah.
going
That's
into
good.
it. So yeah. So went to it. Obviously, I won my class and then I won my pro card. This was 2019, and that's how I turned pro. 11 shows later.
Damn. And then that's
Yeah,
2019.
yeah,
And then
2019. Just before everything went to shit
yeah, I
this
was
year.
gonna say, and then so throughout this time, so obviously throughout that whole time period, you were obviously coaching face to face on the gym floor and things like that as well, right?
Yeah, I did all of that, and I was also working part time at a supplement store.
Oh, damn. Okay. And then
Yeah.
when did obviously kind of you and Jeremy decide like let's build a brand together sort of thing? Because obviously a lot changed in kind of the lockdown time periods, right? I think that's where a lot of us transferred our skills online. So I don't know if it was the same sort of time period. When did you guys decide to
Yes.
let's take our like ourselves and build a brand together?
Yeah, so we built our brand separately, but a lot of it started literally during the pandemic. So I realized that obviously, because the gym that I was at, again, being commercial gym, they were charging me a lot for rent. And
Yeah.
then obviously, if you work online, no one's going to charge you rent.
Yeah.
And then, a lot of people, I was quite surprised that my business actually boomed during that time because I just assumed no one would really want to diet or train during that time. But a lot of people started reaching out to me, and I'm really, really thankful for that because I was in quite a down space because I was supposed to pro debut at the Arnold and it got
Oh.
cancelled 1 week out. And this was before all the lockdown and
Oh, so
everything happened.
were
So
you prepping for that as well? And then obviously a week
yes,
before.
yeah, I was prepping for
Ah,
my pro debut at the Arnold. Like there was like all the American pros were supposed to be there. Like I think there was like Angelica, like Janet. Like it was just
I
my
think
pro
that
debut
yeah.
was supposed to be like next to them, and I knew I was not gonna win, but it was just like I wanted it so much just to like be there. And then just a week out for it to get cancelled, it was just like the worst thing ever. I've never been that depressed in my
Damn.
life. So not only that, obviously it got cancelled and I couldn't go there because that was also supposed to be like I guess a mini holiday because going to Melbourne. So I was like,
Yeah.
no show, no Melbourne holiday. My best friend lived in Melbourne, so I was looking forward to seeing her. And then after that, shortly after, the gyms closed. So I was like, cool, now I can't do the one thing that's keeping me sane, which is train. Also, the gym closing means I just lost my job because I'm a PT.
Yeah.
Everything started to crumble.
Yeah.
But so
No.
yeah, I think if not for online coaching, and oh yeah, I was supposed to get married that year too. So all that was down the drain. So thankfully, and I tell this to a lot of my clients. I'm like, as much as you guys feel like I've helped you through your lockdown and stuff, I'm like, I really relied on all of you and my work and my business and all my clients to keep me going and keep me sane because I was like super just in like a
So
very, very
hard, man.
depressed state
Yeah.
at the time. Everything was just like taken away from me at one go. So at least I had my coaching to kind of pour my heart into. And also, that's when my business started to boom. And that's when Jeremy also, he decided to finally kind of like take his business online because before that, he was very much doing a lot of face to face. So
Yeah.
that's when both of us started to build our own online businesses together. Thankfully, even though I couldn't compete because I couldn't get out of Perth for 2 years, Perth was still kind of like a safe bubble. So we could have our own little local comps here still. So
Oh
I
wow.
still could
Okay.
comp prep clients. Yeah, so my clients were still competing. So I was like, even though I couldn't compete, I could focus and be all in on them competing and finally starting my journey as a comp prep coach.
Yeah.
So that's when I started comp prep coaching as well, was like, literally during the pandemic and all that kind of stuff.
Wow.
So, I was able to put clients on stage and realize that their wins were my wins. And I found a different way to fill my cup in that sense. Since I couldn't do it with competing, and competing was my whole life before this, and just finding another outlet to be able
It's just
to
like
put
another
all like
area.
my passion.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
like another area of fulfillment because it's like, what happens if you break your leg? Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Or just something, just something stupid. I think it's important to have different things that fill your cup up in a sense. And we need that.
Yeah,
So it's like at the end of the day, like competing's not going to be forever. So you sometimes in your head you
exactly.
think, well, let me start building this thing and let me start building a brand and a reputation that allows me to, in a sense, spread that load so I still get fulfillment so I don't feel so lost. Because I was the same. Like I was coaching face to face in London, and then it was just like, oh, by the way, everything's closing down, you lock down, and I was living in an apartment, so no garden or anything like that. So I was like, I had to go back, live on my mom's floor for like 14 weeks and things like that. So I was like, all right, like we've got £400 between us. No money. So I'm like, right, let's do this online shit and let's just go all in on it. So no, it's amazing. I think, especially obviously like having, I think Perth's obviously a nice area as well, where it is like, because not much in a sense, it's not as, people don't fly in as much, like, and things like that, like it can kind of stay a little bit normalized, which is nice that you had that as well.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. I was still a little bit bitter about it because I'm someone that like loves traveling and also having family outside of Perth as well and competing. I always called it my very beautiful prison.
Yeah, it's so true. It's so true.
Because we were like, we can still go to the beach and do everything, and we have a lovely place called Rottnest Island in Perth and everything. I'm like, this prison is great. It's a beautiful prison. Still prison. I still think we're locked in this prison, but like, it's great. It's great here. I love it.
Amazing. And then obviously throughout that time period, obviously, because I don't know, how did it work for Perth? Like, you obviously, everyone did the March thing, right? March till summer sort of thing, or March till winter.
Yeah, so I think we were probably locked down for the shortest amount of time as compared to Melbourne and Sydney. They definitely had it way worse. So and then we when we got out of lockdown, it was like we were free, but then it's just the borders that were closed. And occasionally, when there was outbreaks and stuff, then we would go back into short periods of lockdowns here and there. But it was definitely like not long at all. I think it was just the first couple of months that was the longest, and then
Okay.
after that, maybe sometimes we'll have short ones of like 2 to 3 weeks or whatever. And
Yeah.
at that time, we were all used to it already. We're like, oh, okay, cool. I guess you just, we just have a little bit of a break or whatever during that time.
Yeah, 100%. And then since, I guess since then, it's obviously you guys have just been building the brand and things like that. And obviously competing's kind of on the radar for the foreseeable and things like that. What's in the, I guess for you, what's the next thing, if that makes sense? What's on the radar at the moment? Obviously, you've congratulations. Obviously, you've just been married and things like that. You finally got your wedding after what, 3 years now.
Yeah, 3 years.
So obviously, congratulations, things like that, and it looks stunning. Obviously, what? Okay, this is a good one. Everyone says that. You said this before we started the podcast. So having like a wedding abroad.
Yeah.
Okay, top three biggest stresses of the wedding.
Right. So the first one is just getting people there. So obviously you feel very responsible for every single one to just make sure that they even get through the borders and in, make sure like they get the right visas and things like that. We obviously have older family members that we need to worry about that once they get there, to just make sure that like how they're going to get picked up from the airport. And we had 50 guests. So having
Holy
to do
shit!
logistics for 50 guests, that
Fuck.
was like very stressful. And we could have easily just been like, oh look, I don't care how you get there and whatever, but like I'm not that kind of person. I maybe I'm a bit of a control freak or whatever, but like I just needed to make sure that I knew, what flights people were on, what day they were flying in, where they were staying. Obviously not everyone stayed in the same place. I had to search for a 6-room villa for just like my bridal party. So even just finding something like that just to make sure, I want all of us together, because if everyone were to stay separately, it wouldn't just have the same
Yeah.
kind of effect. You kind of want to be together, So finding a villa for the 6 of us, organizing that, and then like payments, the international payments, sorting all that out. And then also we had our parents, we wanted them in the villa next to us. So I had to like find a complex that had multiple villas, things like that. Just the logistics is very, very difficult for that amount of people. And then on top of that, the next con is that like it's not a 1 day affair. So obviously, cool, you have your wedding on the 1 day, but
True.
most people are going to be there for like 3 to 4 days. So you have to plan activities for the 3 to 4 days.
Oh,
So
fuck.
again, you have to like do all these kind of stuff. And even something as simple as you would think like booking out a restaurant is not that easy for that many people, because some restaurants won't take your booking. They make you have like a crazy amount of like a minimum spend of like $150 a person or whatever it may be,
Yeah. Wow.
because you needed to like book out the area. And I'm not trying to have a second wedding. I just want a spot for all of us to have dinner. So, things like that, just sorting all that out was like quite stressful.
Yeah.
And if depending on how secluded and like the place is, because we were in this place in Bali called Uluwatu, which is quite far away from the main area. And I guess it's not something people have to worry about in other countries, but it's not really that easy to get around with transport and things like that in certain areas of Bali. So obviously, I had to make sure that I got a specific kind of like a little van to pick everyone up for the wedding day and get everyone to the location. But we have to stagger everyone because I needed to come last and I wanted Jeremy to be there first so he doesn't see me, and then get his friends there first so they can like take photos and whatever. And just like
Yeah.
all these kind of planning stuff
Holy shit.
was quite difficult. Yeah. And then on top of that, having to bring your wedding dress, your shoes, if you have a second wedding dress, just bring all your stuff for the wedding day from another country is
Yeah.
again like something that you have to plan and think about, because you also have this fear of like, if I put it in my check-in luggage, what if
I was
my
gonna
check-in
say, did
luggage
you
goes
check it or
missing?
not?
No, so I hand carried everything. But it's the same with competing, right? We never check in the posing suit. Or we never check in the bikini. Bikini, heels, jewelry come with you on the plane.
Yeah.
Wedding, same thing. Your veil, your shoes, your wedding dress come with you on the plane.
So
Do
the
not
big
check it in because you just never know.
so the biggest tip to any bikini girl out there, if you get married, just mimic traveling and competing
Yes,
abroad.
exactly the same. Exactly the same.
No, amazing. I love that. Absolutely amazing. It did, honestly, I saw a cut. I think I saw Jeremy's picture and stuff like that. It did look absolutely stunning. I'll have to have a bit of a stalk, or you'll probably just be blasting them out for the next month, so it's fine.
Yeah, yeah. It'll be just coming nonstop.
So I guess what's next for you? Obviously, halfway kind of through 2023, what's on the radar? I guess in kind of all different forms of life, from your own kind of personal training and obviously competition life into personal life, business, things like that.
So just one financial year ago, so we're just coming up to our first year. Me and Jeremy obviously combined and we formed S Legion. So now we run the S Legion company. So we do it together rather
What
than
does that
having
stand
our
for?
own
S
individual.
Legion. S Legion. Is what is
So
it?
because he's known as so aesthetic.
Okay,
So
yeah.
the S stands for so aesthetic, and so is his last name. I guess now my last name. So the S stands for so, and
Okay.
then Legion.
Okay, cool.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Oh, that's good. I like that.
Unfortunately, a lot of people pronounce it as Legion.
Yeah. Doesn't sound as good, does
So,
it?
so we didn't really think that through properly. Like maybe we should have hyphened it, put a dot there or like a space or whatever. But we're like, okay, whatever. It is done now. People can call it whatever they want. It's Legion, S Legion, but yeah, it's S Legion. In case anyone was wondering. So yeah, that's the company. Obviously, we both have formed together. We also have a bunch of coaches on board. And a whole team of people working together with us and things like that on the back end of things. So I do a lot of like just the back end stuff for managing, making sure people get paid, things like that. A lot of like back end stuff. So I don't take on a lot of clients for those reasons. So I only take on a very limited amount of clients because I want to make sure that I can give them everything that I can, as well as make sure that I can do what I need to for S Legion. But more importantly than that, like I'm going to be prepping most of the time. And I know that. And I'm a professional athlete first. And I think that's what a lot of my clients kind of like love and respect about me, that I always say like, look, I need to make sure that like my competing career is first,
Yeah.
and all the time I have, like, apart from that, I will dedicate 100% to my clients. But for those reasons, I can't have too many.
Hmm.
Yeah.
That's
So unfortunately, and
fair.
with all of us, in order to like grow, we need, we want to grow by having more clients and things like that. So my growth is kind of capped in a way for as long as I'm still competing professionally, which obviously, as we all know, like it's not forever.
No, but
So
that's it.
as
But
soon
also
as
as well,
that's done,
it's the foundation of a brand as well. Like it's especially what you say with the way that we market nowadays and things like that. It's like it's almost like I always think if you generally I think if you're a coach online, like you don't have to compete, you don't have to do these things, but I do think there should be a process to follow. So people should be invested in your journey, a bit like when you watch Nike or you watch Adidas, their athletes, you watch their journey sort of thing. I think it's an important thing to do because you are marketing you're the face of the brand in a sense 24/7. So obviously when you do well, the brand does well. So I think it's
yeah,
important to
yeah,
do. Oh, it's gone. Is it? Can you hear me?
yep, yeah,
Oh,
yeah,
okay,
yeah, I
yeah.
can hear you.
No, no, I
Yep,
think
yep,
it's important for the
yeah.
brand. So I think it's good that you're obviously like it's smart, like to cap, you'd be like, right, I just want to work with 20 ladies, things like that. That's the limit sort of thing. And then obviously the work that you bring in from branding and things like that, obviously Jeremy and the team kind of can take can take the
Yeah, so
end
I'm
of it
glad
all.
that we have a whole team of coaches now. I hate saying no to people when they do want me, but at least now I can refer them to like Jeremy or one of our other coaches and just, rest assured that they're in good hands as well. Because like obviously we all kind of like come together a lot and we learn like, when we upskill, we all upskill together, different courses that someone would like kind of take on. And a lot of people are like specialized in different things. So we all kind of work together in that sense. Obviously, a lot of us sometimes have like differing views. So we do argue a lot as well.
Yeah.
But I think that's good. I think that's a good way for all of us to get better. Like if like Jeremy has a set way of doing things, and I think it should be done this way or whatever. And sometimes we do have clients who verse each other, and it's a little bit of friendly rivalry between me and him. And sometimes even though we work together, we also just like compete with each other a little bit. But I think that's a healthy way to go about it, and especially for S Legion.
Yeah, no, amazing, amazing. And then when have you got any plans for competing or anything like that in the future, or you kind of just obviously enjoy post-wedding things like that? Have you got honeymoon coming up and stuff, or
Yeah, so everyone's gonna think I'm crazy, but yeah, so the plan was the wedding, and then my birthday, and then I have my cousin's wedding in Brisbane at the end of this month in end of June.
yeah,
And then as soon as I come back in July, I'm gonna start prep.
nice, awesome.
And I'll be competing in October. So I'll be about 14, 15 weeks out.
Okay,
So
perfect.
I've kind of already pre-started, like I did like a pre-prep kind of a situation already. Just that obviously I want to look good for my wedding, but also I wanted to make sure I was a little bit leaner prior to the wedding so that I could enjoy the wedding,
Yeah,
knowing that that would set me back a little bit. So I did already kind of pre-plan for all these things. And again, I guess that's the reason why, this whole year or since my last show last year in Singapore in August, I've been coaching myself because I knew that was a lot coming up since then. So after I competed in August, so last August I competed in the Singapore Pro Show. I placed sixth. Was very happy with that placing. Obviously, I want more for myself, but just to be able to place in the pro show, as you would know, is incredibly, incredibly hard because everyone is incredibly good. And the best thing about that show was it was ran by that same judge that came up to me after
oh,
the
cool.
Vietnam show. And I just really wanted to go back and support him. Now, just coming back as a friend, be like, hey, like you just those words you gave me backstage that really pushed me like to continue and become a pro. And now I'm a pro. I competed in America, but like I decided to do one last one that year because I wanted to come and support your show. And I just, it was again in Singapore, my home country. I wanted to come back there and do that.
Yeah,
So I was really happy after that. But after that, I was like straight on into coaching. So that was probably one of my biggest coaching seasons because we also flew for the first time to like Brisbane, or we flew Brisbane twice for like the ICN Nationals and then the IFBB Nationals. And there was a lot of flying for clients competitions and things like that. We went to Singapore and Malaysia for like a short family trip in the January, and there was a lot coming up. And I knew that I didn't want to let any coach down during that time. And it just made me sound like a lot of excuses to someone if I were to, be like, I'm sorry, I can't really be 100% because I'm going to be flying to Brisbane for my clients' comps. And, I want to focus on them and not on my food and shit like that. I don't want to worry about packing my food. Like I'm just going to go. And like, I'm too anxious during the show to eat anyways, because I'm just like all riled up and, you know how it is
yeah,
during
yeah,
show day.
100%.
Yeah, yeah. And then after that, when my clients are so happy, I want to go out and have a pizza with them. I wanted to be fully present in that competing season for my clients. And also season A this year, obviously we flew again, like for clients and things like that. On top of that, one of our coaches was also competing, and he was going for his pro card like this
Cool.
season. He's also a good friend. He was the best man of the wedding and things like that as well.
Oh,
Just
cool.
wanted to be fully present in all these things, which is so much. So I knew in my heart that I would still give bodybuilding everything that I could.
Yeah,
And I know that wasn't going to be 100%. I knew that was probably going to be 80%, but I was going to still make sure that 80% was everything that I could. And
yeah.
I would still be proud of that 80%, but I just didn't feel like someone else would be able to understand that. And so I decided to
Yeah.
go at it on my own. And then I had full intentions of prepping myself as well, because I'm not going to jump in with someone 14, 15 weeks out, like after my cousin's wedding and be like, hey, here I am, prep
Yeah,
me,
yeah.
So, yeah, I had intentions of kind of prepping myself through all that, but we made some last minute changes probably a month ago, and Jeremy will be prepping me for this show.
No way. Cool. That's
Yeah, yeah,
interesting.
yeah. So it's good because he knows obviously all the things coming up and things like that. So we pre-plan all of this, and obviously, I didn't train at all when I was in Bali, and again, he's pre-planned for all of that. It was smashing training before that. Like my CNS was so fried that I was like, I really actually think I needed 5 days of training.
Yeah, 100%. No, I think
Yeah,
it's one of those ones. Obviously, Jeremy prepping you. It's obviously, yeah, it's crazy. Like it's good,
it's
but
crazy.
but also you're at the point as well now. Obviously, like even as in a relationship, even from coaching, like you've watched each other for so many years now, where it's just going to be almost like, do you think you should do this? I think you should do that. This would be a good change, things like that. It's almost just like a debate, and then being like, okay, let's come with a mutual agreement and be like, do this
Yeah,
sort of
yeah.
thing. So it'll be good. I'm excited just to watch it. So it'll be awesome.
Yeah,
It's perfect.
I think it just brings something else to this that makes it even more kind of obviously we all want to win and I go into every show wanting to win, but also like to me it's the work and the journey there, like enjoying the work and enjoying the process. And I think this will be something really good for like both of us and both of us as coaches as well, and just life experience to be able to like experience this. And obviously it's internationally. He's the only one that will be flying there with me, and he'll be able to see me from morning to night when we're like overseas, as compared
Yeah.
to having to FaceTime someone and things like that. So no matter what happens, at least like it'll be definitely an experience for both of us. I don't know whether like it'll continue past this season, but I'll be doing at least 2 shows for this season. So it'll be something really cool for us to do. And like I said, he's the only one that's going to be traveling with me to like all the shows and going to be seeing me from morning till nighttime. So I
Yeah.
guess, might as well.
Awesome. Do you know what shows they are, or do you want to keep them secret?
Oh, I can say it. Yeah, so
Go
it'll
for it.
be Vietnam and Korea.
Okay, cool. Interesting. Yeah, yeah, sick.
Yeah.
Have you been to Korea before?
I have, but Jeremy hasn't.
Oh, have you competed there? Or was that
Yeah.
you went on a trip
I
there?
No, I haven't competed in Korea. I went when I was younger with my parents, like for a short holiday.
Oh, sick. Awesome.
Yeah, yeah. So obviously I've competed in Vietnam before, so excited to go
Yeah.
back there to compete again, but never competed in Korea. And I think the thing with the Vietnam in the pro circuit is that like I don't know anyone who will be doing it because it's not one of those shows where you have that the same pros always going. It's a wild card. You just don't know who's going to show up,
Yeah.
and I think I like that about it. I don't know who's going to be there. I don't know who's the favorite. I don't know anything. It's just like a whole
Sometimes
new
nicer
show.
though, isn't it? Because you just go in there just being like, right, let's just fucking do the best we can, and whoever stood next to us deserves it more or less than us, in a sense.
Yeah, yeah,
No,
exactly,
and I think
exactly.
it's probably that. I guess that kind of the world it allows. Can be last minute things as well. If someone decides to jump in or pull out and things like that, it'll be interesting actually. It'll be good. Yeah, it's quite cool. It's
Yeah,
definitely
nice
nice
fresh
seeing.
slate.
Yeah, it's nice seeing that kind of. It's definitely getting more of a name now. You see it pop up a lot more now, don't you? You see like kind of the Asia shows and things like that. Definitely having a bit more mark on the world and things like that. You definitely
Yeah,
more
yeah,
publicized, and I guess the promoting and the marketing behind it all is a lot better as well over the years. It's cool. I'm excited. That's sick.
yeah. Especially Korea. So Koreans normally do an insane show. So like they're just with the lighting and the staging and everything, they just go wild with it and everything. So I'm really excited to see that. And I think the Koreans look really, really good. There's quite a few Koreans that are actually like in the Olympia as well. And I think Korea usually does about 4 to 5 pro shows a year. So
Yeah.
they're pretty big into their bodybuilding there. So I'm just excited to see what
There's
I think it's a little bit of a different look as
yeah.
well. So that's always a little bit of a risk and a little bit of uncertainty, but you never know whether they like your look or not until you actually go there and see, get feedback, and then just think about whether you want to go back there again next time or not.
Yeah, there was I think there's two guys that did the Dubai Pro last year that are from Korea, and they trained this
Yeah.
year as well. Yeah. And they're just
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
yeah, they're pretty freaky. I'll give them that.
Yeah,
They're
yeah, they're
it's like you say,
freaky.
it's a weird look, isn't it? Like I think
Yeah,
like, when you
yeah,
see, is that right? Japanese pros, I guess so. Japanese pros and kind of that. It's a different. I think it's like a skin texture as well. It's very
yeah.
different look. It's interesting. Yeah, I haven't actually seen any
Yeah,
like.
the bone structure and everything of like just Asians in general or Southeast Asians in general, like a little bit
Yeah,
different and all that. So definitely with the bikini girls, they have a much freakier look because all of them have like the insanely tiny waist and all that kind of
yeah, that's
stuff.
true.
So
Yeah, damn, it'd be interesting. No, honestly, my love. obviously we've been on for an hour now, so it's amazing. So I won't steal too much of your time, but a tradition on this podcast is obviously being the 1%. So what is that one thing, that 1% that you can give someone advice today that will take them 1% further forward tomorrow? What would that be?
My life motto that I like to live by is treat every setback as a setup to your comeback. So I think, with everything that I have achieved now and I'm yet to achieve, I definitely won't be where I am if I didn't fail so much earlier in my career. Obviously, both business wise, it took a long time for me to get to where I am, like competing wise, it took a long time as well. And I think it's that all the hurdles and struggles make you a more resilient and stronger person. So everyone should embrace any kind of difficulties they may face and know that you'll come out of it like a stronger and better person than before.
Damn, I like that. That's it. I think this is going to be 66, and no one said that. Episode 66, and no one said that. So good. I love it. No, honestly, no, absolutely amazing. Thank you for your time. If anyone wants to stalk you, follow you, things like that, where's the best way to kind of contact you and things like that?
So on Instagram, I am the Nicole Tan, or you can just look me up on YouTube. I do a lot of YouTube videos, Nicole Tan IFBB Pro, and you can find me on these two platforms.
Awesome, guys. I will link all of Nicole's stuff in the bio stuff below and things like that. So any questions on anything, drop her a DM. I know she's very open to that sort of stuff as well, and she'll help you out as well. So, no, my love, thank you so much for your time. I've absolutely loved it.
Thanks for having me.